Hi guys, good afternoon. Welcome once again. Please confirm you can hear me by raising your hands. Okay, great. Thank you very much. You can put down your hands now. How are we all doing? How is your week going so far? You can use the chat session. Have you been practicing on Figma? What's the latest? What have you learned? Okay, Chuku, why are you sad? So, our tradition, right? We're just going to, drop an emoji to describe your week so far. If you learned a thing or two, feel free to share. Questions, a 10 to why are you angry? I remember I said I asked you guys to practice on Figma. I mean, I saw a lot of links, Figma links for people who shared their stuff on the Discord channel. I'm sure it took a lot. It's not easy to actually put out your stuff, put your stuff out there and get feedbacks, honest feedbacks from people. So big ups, guys. Keep it coming. I'm really proud. Okay, so the next thing is to type out one thing you learned from the last class. You can also, if you want to speak up, you can also raise your hands and then I'll call you up to speak. One thing you learned from the last class before we go on into the topic for today. Okay, we have one hand here. Please go ahead. Unmute your mic.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Though I was not part of the class, I was not fortunate to partake in the class. But I went through the video on YouTube, and one thing I got through the class was what's it called again? Design thinking. Design thinking, I believe it's when we associate it with the other aspect of life, which is I'm trying to relate it with entrepreneurship now. So what I learned is if you are going to begin a design, you have to go through some certain stages, which will help you see plan and know the basics that you need to satisfy the need of the user. Which the first stage I think is empathy, empathize, or I can't remember actually.
Yes,
Then
empathize.
define, then idea, something idea, then
Ideate.
ideate. Okay, the prototype, test. I think if I'm not losing any of it. So
Yes, you're correct.
if I'm relating it to entrepreneurship, if you are for an entrepreneur, before he goes in search of an idea of what to solve, he must go on a feasibility study. So I think I relate this to like a feasibility study in the design world. So it helps us to know the what the problem is and how to solve it, who the design is going to help to solve his or her problem. So in all wrap, I would say design thinking helps us to focus and to prepare for um for a problem and how to solve that problem.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm.
Thank you for that answer. Okay, so We're just going to get right into it. What to expect today, everything you need to know about the empathy stage. We're going to talk about user research, user interview tips, and lastly, the user interview scripts. So let's get started. But before we dive into the meal for today, I mean, it's safe to assume that we all want our products to actually work, right? Whatever products we're putting out there. Then we need to start the design process with empathy, which is one of the most important elements in both design thinking and in business too, okay? But what exactly is empathy? And why is it so important? So we're going to take a look at what empathy means and how it can help you as a designer to create solutions that actually work for people. And also while we're at it, we're going to explore how the lack of empathy can result in product failure, something we all want to avoid. All right, so what exactly is empathy? We're talking about the empathize stage. First of all, what is empathy? Now, empathy is the ability to see the world through other people's eyes, to see what they see, feel what they feel, and experience things as they do. Of course, none of us can, fully experience things the way other people do, but we can attempt to, get as close to it as possible. And we can achieve this when we put aside our own preconceived ideas about the world and choose to understand the ideas, thoughts, and needs of others instead. So what we have here on this slide, empathize is the first stage of the design thinking process. Designers conduct research to get personal grasp of users' needs. They set aside assumptions to obtain insights into the user's world by observing and consulting with users. This is where they can understand users' experiences, motivations, and problems. So now, I want to put out something. I want to put something out there that you need to know. Empathy is not the same thing as sympathy. Okay? Empathy is often confused with sympathy. A mistake you definitely don't want to make in the world of design thinking, right? Sympathy is all about your ability to show concern for the well-being of another person, but does not necessarily require you to experience what that person is experiencing, right? Or to experience what others do. Now, sympathy often involves a sense of detachment. And so when we tend to sympathize, we tend to project our feelings of pity and sorrow onto another person. Now, these feelings do not only have the potential to rub people on the wrong way, but also prove useless in the design thinking process. Now, in the design thinking process, your goal is to understand the people for whom you're designing for, not react to their current predicaments in any emotional way. So this empathy stage of design thinking requires you to visit your users in their natural environment, learn about how they behave, conduct interviews with them, trying to get to know more about them, okay? So that you can create a solution which actually solves a problem that they are facing. And the only thing you need to actually do all this to get these results is to have empathy and not sympathy. So I just wanted to point that out, that there are two different things. And I've explained that empathy is understanding the feelings of others, putting yourselves in their shoes, getting to know all about them. Josephine Joseph said in the comment section, sympathy, you feel for the person, while in empathy, you feel with the person. I think that makes sense. Thank you very much for that insight. So there's a diagram here which will actually help you to understand empathy more. So when you try to empathize with people, you try to understand their perspective. Now you can see that in this diagram, this is what empathy is all about. You're seeing their world, that's the user's world. You're appreciating them as human beings, understanding their feelings, you communicate your understanding. All of this is what empathy entails. So I saw this quote that I want to share, or I actually shared it here. It says, if you want to build a product that's relevant to people, you need to put yourself in their shoes. Okay, so if you want to put out any product out there, it could be a mobile application, a website, you need to put yourself in the shoes of their users in order to build something that is relevant to them, something that actually solves their problem, right? Now, why is empathy so important? We're talking about this since. First of all, it helps you to appreciate people's emotional and physical needs. It helps you to gain insight into the way people see, understand, and interact with the world around them. Lastly, find out what people mean rather than just what they say. This research is also subjective and is concerned with motivations and thoughts rather than just facts. Now, in the world of design thinking, empathy is a deep understanding of the problems and realities of the people you are designing for. So in other words, we could say that empathy requires you to learn about the difficulties people face and uncover their needs and desires to explain their behaviors better. So you get to understand why people act the way they do, okay, why they do things that they do and all of that because of empathy. This is why empathy is very, very important in design, okay? Now, there's this quote I saw, which actually, it struck me. So I decided to share it here. It says, people ignore design that ignores people. Right. Okay. Because if you tend to, not care about the feelings of users, people are not going to make use of your products. Because at the end of the day, you're not able to meet their needs. So they don't actually have need for the product. So people ignore design that ignores people. Now, I want you to know that empathy is very crucial to business success. It is an essential component of business solutions when you look at, things from the perspective of profits. You may create solutions which completely miss the mark if you develop solutions in isolation. So you need to gain essential insight about your users, whoever they are, if you want to remain relevant in the market. It is very, very important. That's why I cannot stress enough how important it is for you as a designer to develop the best possible understanding of your users, their needs, and the problem that your product or service is trying to solve. It is very, very important. So now, how do we gain more understanding about our users? How do we go about it? This is where user research comes in. This is a medium of getting to understand our users better. I like to think that to empathize is to research. So you should constantly remind yourself, okay, to question everything you observe instead of judging, whatever you hear or observe. Instead of judging, you need to question them. You also need to listen to others open-mindedly rather than focus on points that confirm your bias, okay? Because we're humans, okay? And it is very natural for us to be biased, right? In situations like this. So as designers or design thinkers, we must, catch and overcome this before they spoil our research or distort our research. So it is very, very important. Now, we're going to be looking at user research and what it actually means. User research focuses on understanding user behaviors, needs, and motivations through observation techniques, task analysis, and other feedback methodologies. Now, what does user research do? It helps us to explore users' problems, their needs, their emotions, and motivations. And we're going to be making use of qualitative and quantitative methods of research. here. That's what we're going to be talking about. And the first one here is the qualitative research. Now, this focuses on the why users feel, think, and do. And it is a more direct method to understand the users. Body storming could be applied here. And let me pause a bit. First of all, you need to know that the most frequently used qualitative research methods are the one-on-one interviews. When you conduct user interviews, that's what we're going to be talking about it in today's class. Now, you're probably wondering what body storming means. Let me explain. I don't know how many of you guys actually, played the pretend game when you were a child. I'll explain what the pretend game is, but if you have any idea what I'm talking about, you could just, say something in the chat section. Now, most of us probably played this game, while most of us were probably too serious. I've seen a lot of serious kids these days. So the pretend game is where you envision yourself as somebody that you're not. I mean, at the moment. So you could envision yourself as a princess in the castle. You could envision yourself as a CEO of a company. Now, I'm just going to share a story about my sister. I really like sharing this story. She used to do this thing growing up where she'll get a cane, and then she's going to arrange her baby dolls in front of her and try to role play as a teacher. Okay, so she's going to use the cane and she's going to say things like, why haven't you done your assignment? So she's trying to role play as a teacher, which she actually is not. So that's what the pretend game means. Now, body storming is a technique used in this phase stage of the design process, and it takes the customer's viewpoint into account. So instead of you trying to visualize or imagine how a product might be used, okay, body storming helps the designer or your design team, in essence, to act it out as though the product or the process already exists. Now, let me give you a practical example. You could put yourself in the shoes of the users and ask yourself questions like, if I were the user and I made use of this application or actually interacted with this interface, how would I feel? Or if you're speaking of a product that it doesn't exist yet, if it were to exist, right? What are the things that I want to see on this application? Would I actually want this flow to be as easy and intuitive as possible? So this is what body storming is. Okay, so in this way, it is very similar to that childhood game I just talked about that requires a dose of imagination and pretend game to create a more user-friendly experience. That's what body storming is. Now, in quantitative research, remember I said that qualitative research, now take note of the difference. Qualitative research is a more direct method, and I mentioned one-on-one interview. So you're getting to see the person face to face. That way you're also observing their body languages and putting and noting these things down. Now, the quantitative research, it collects information. So this one has to do with numerical data. Collect information from existing and potential customers using sampling methods and sending out online surveys, online polls, and questionnaires. So you could even do it, you could carry out this research, the quantitative, I mean, from anywhere in the world. So I could actually be in Akwa Ibom and carry out a quantitative research for someone who is outside the country, because all I have to do is send out online surveys or online polls and questionnaires. Do you understand? While qualitative is a more direct method, quantitative is the opposite of that. So at the end of the day, when I've gotten, feedbacks or answers from the online surveys I sent out, I now have to decide, okay, out of 100 people that I questioned, 90% are interested in this idea. The other 10% are not. So like I said, we're dealing with numerical data. All right, so these are the steps that you need to take in qualitative research. First of all, what you want to do is have a research plan. I'm seeing a lot of comments in the comment section. They're actually very nice. I like your ideas. So, like I said, step 1 is have a research plan. Step 2, conduct user research. Now, the essence of step 1 is so that you actually, you go step by step. You have a research plan, so you know that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to achieve in this research, so that you don't go sideways. Step 2, we have conduct user research. Step 3, you have write a research report. So at the end of the research, was it successful? Was I able to gain any, understanding on the users? Now, the first one was what? Have a research plan. Now, the first thing you want to do is write out a brief. Now, this example brief that I came up with, since we've been using the banking app as a case study since we started this training. So I decided to write a brief based on that. Now, let me read out the brief. UBA has engaged you to design a banking app to enhance user experience, improve accessibility, and streamline banking processes for their customers. Now, the objective is to create a user-centered design that simplifies financial transactions, ensures security, and offers a seamless mobile banking experience. This is the brief. Okay, so now this is what a research plan looks like. To properly plan your research, these are the things that you need to put in place. The first thing is research background. We have research objectives or research questions, list of participants, the number of participants too. How do you want to? The thing we have here is the interview script. And we're going to be looking at each of them one after the other or giving samples of them. Now, take notes that the first thing we have here is what? The research background. Now, the research background. Why do we want to solve this problem? That's the question. Why do we want to solve this problem? So we're going to be digging down into the background. Now, I'm going to read this out. In today's rapidly evolving digital landscape, mobile applications have become integral tools for users to access various services, including banking. As customers increasingly seek convenience and efficiency in managing finances, found impact on user satisfaction, engagement, and loyalty. Okay, so this is an example of a research background. This is why we want to solve this problem, because the world is evolving. Okay, people don't longer want to go to the bank and just sit all day. They want to be able to perform these financial transactions from the comfort of their homes, just a few clicks on their phones or websites. Okay, so usually this comes from the client or company. That's the research background. Now, the next thing is what we call the research goals. You would want to write down your research goals. Why exactly do you want to perform this user research? Now, I put together these two goals. The first thing is to understand how people perform financial transactions and access essential banking services. How do people currently do it? Okay, the second thing here we have to understand how best to create a platform that caters for their needs. These are the research goals. Now, I'm going to pick the first one. You can still look at this. The first one we have to understand how people perform financial transactions and access essential banking services. I'm going to pick that. Now, I'm going to generate questions that can help me answer that question, right? Or should I say, we have this as our goal. Now so I have 3 questions here that I put down. How do people currently perform financial transactions online? Do they even perform these financial transactions? That's the first question we need to ask ourselves. If you're trying to understand how people perform financial transactions and access essential banking services. The second question we have here is, what challenges do they face when they try to perform online transactions? How often do they even perform these financial online transactions. Okay, remember that we're trying to understand how people perform financial transactions. So you also need to know that your questions need to be in line, because if you ask the wrong questions, you're going to get the wrong answers, right? Now, for the first question, how do people currently perform financial transactions online? These are like broken questions, right, that can actually help you to answer the main question that we have here, because this is like the first goal or the first objective, right? How do people currently perform financial transaction? A participant, if I was going through an interview right now and I had somebody, participants who are actually doing the interview for, these are questions that I could actually ask. The first time I ask the person is, have you ever used a banking app? Okay, I mean, the world is changing. So we've noticed that we have more microfinance banks like Kuda, we have OP, we have a lot of them, Money Points, etc. So I'm going to ask, ever used a banking app? How frequently do you engage in finance, bill payments, fund transfers, or even online shopping? Describe the types of financial transactions you usually perform online. For instance, do you pay bills? Do you transfer money between accounts? Do you make purchases or even make investments? What devices, smartphone, tablet, or a combination of all of these? Could you walk me through the process you follow when initiating an online financial transaction? Lastly, what steps do you take from start to finish? With all of these questions, I'm going to gain a lot of understanding on the users, because to tell me okay, they're going to tell me everything, all the processes they take, and with that, I'm going to be taking notes and let.
Hello guys, good afternoon. Favor got cut off, most likely her network. So let's just give her a few minutes to be back soon.
Hi guys, hear me? Sorry about that. My network got a little messy. Please confirm you can hear me.
Hey,
Is it better? So it's breaking. Okay. Hi guys, can you guys hear me now? Is it better? Okay, thank you very much for the feedback. Okay, so where did I stop? Okay, so we're talking about how people currently perform financial transactions and how we can answer that question better. So these are like a list of questions that could help you with that. So the next thing we have here is the screener question, which is actually very, very important. Now, what is the screener question? Just like the name implies, it screens out users that are not important for our research or to our research, and helps you to identify participants that best represent our target users. So in our research, we're trying to build a banking app here. So a good screener question would be, are you currently engaged in online financial transactions such as bill payments, fund transfers, online shopping, or other monetary activities? Now, if the answer is yes, they might be a good fit for your research. And if the answer is no, they might need to be screened out, especially if they do not even have access to a mobile app or website, or they don't have any intentions of performing financial transactions online. Then we need to screen them out. That way you know that you're focusing on this particular set of people. Do you understand? So that's the importance of a screener question. So now we're going to be looking at what we call the user interview. The user interview is a UX research method during which a researcher can ask a user questions about a topic of interest. It could be use of a system, behaviors, and habits with the goal of learning more about that topic. So what user interviews does is, give insights into what users think about a product, a site, an application, or even a process. They can point out what site's content is memorable, what people feel is important on the site, or what ideas for improvement they may have, especially if the products already exist. They could tell you, okay, this product is actually, hard to navigate through. I think that you should actually change the color. I think that this could be better. They'll give you feedbacks for improvement. That's what user interview does. Now, I'm just going to give you a few tips because at the end of this class, I want to believe that we'll be able to, carry out user interviews for our participants. So the first thing you need to know is you need to make the participants feel very comfortable. Okay, because of course, if I am not comfortable with you and you're asking me questions, I'm not going to be totally honest, right? Especially if I cannot be myself and tell you the truth. So you want to make sure that the participant feels very comfortable. So these are a few tips to make that happen. Now, before the interview day, and also at the start of the actual interview, explain the reason for the interview. Let them know the reason for the interview and how the data from it will be used. Secondly, make the user feel heard by taking notes. You can even be nodding your head, frequent eye contact, offering acknowledgements like, okay, I see. And, repeating the words the user said so that the user or the participant doesn't feel like he or she is just talking to him or herself. Do you understand? So also let the users finish whatever they are saying. Do not interrupt them. Don't try to draw conclusions. Pay attention. Make sure to always listen. Okay? Don't rush the participants. Pause. Slow down your pace of speech. Talking slowly has a calming effect and indicates that you are not anxious and that you have the time to listen. Okay, so these are things that you need to take note of when you're conducting a user interview. Now, also, what you need to do is show some empathy by asking related questions. For example, imagine that a user said he could not, what example am I even going to use? That he could not reach, the customer support team. Maybe on, an application or website, the person could not reach the customer support team. You can show some concern by asking the users to elaborate. This could be an example. You couldn't reach support. Can you tell me more about that? You can even try to make the question like, how did that make you feel? But only if the user did not already indicate how they felt. Okay, because if the user already verbally or non-verbally expressed frustration when they were recalling the events, then asking them how the person felt would make it seem like we're not listening. So when you ask questions like this, it makes the participants open up more. Okay, so these are things you need to put into place. These are things that you need to ask. So instead of asking a question that relates to the user's feelings, you can show that you're listening and feel that you actually feel their plight. Now, don't try to, how do I put this? Be distracted when you're conducting your interview. As humans, we have the urge to say things like, oh my God, that must have been frustrating, or I'm sorry your time was wasted like that. Those would be leading points, and it could make the participants sway. So in order to stay on course, you can actually express some of your apologetic sentiments at the end of the interview, but stay on course as long as you get to make them talk or speak up the more. Also, I would urge us to be very authentic. Don't try to fake empathy, acting like, I don't know how to explain it, but people tend to know when you're actually acting it and when you're not being yourself. So it is better to be yourself. Don't say something that you do not genuinely feel. Okay, so these are tips that you need to take note of. What did I say? Make the participants feel comfortable. I'm going to list out a few more tips here. Use a comfortable location for the interview. It could be the person's home or an office space. Prepare your questions before the interview. That way you do not go out of course. Ask open-ended questions. I'm going to explain that. Also, avoid leading closed or vague questions. These two last points are very, very important. I'm going to start by saying that you need to prepare your questions before the interview, because while you will likely think of questions while sitting with the user, do well to prepare your interview, a list of questions that you aim to have answered. A question list will ensure that you're able to, get your team's feedback about your questions. That's if you're working with a team. And also help you to remember everything that you want to know about or ask the user about as many of the right topics as possible during the interview. It also helps you to construct clear, non-leading questions better than you would have in the moment. For me, I would personally say that writing out my questions, it will help me, overcome any form of stress or fatigue by having questions in hand, okay, to refer to. Now, what did I mean by avoid leading questions? Now, what leading questions does is box the participants into what you want to hear. Now, I'm going to give you an example. So instead of asking questions like, do you feel that the send feature, SEND, the send feature we have is currently bad? Do you feel the send feature we have is currently bad? Now, if you're the participant, what would your answers likely be? You're going to say yes or no, right? So instead, we first to get their own perspective. You can ask something like, can you tell me about the time you used the send feature? How did you feel? Now, this question is quite different from the first one because this will actually allow the users to tell you exactly how they feel. It's to give them more room to tell you everything that you need to know. Avoid questions that will give you a yes or no response. Imagine asking questions that will give you a yes or no response at the end of the user research or the interview. You just have yes, no, yes, no. How exactly are you going to work with that? You have barely anything or barely any information at all to work with. So you need to ask why and more whys as long as they're comfortable. Leading questions, okay? For example, a question like, why do you enjoy using the product so much? What product should I even talk about? Let's say the Nivea product. Nivea, the Nivea brand. Why do you enjoy using the Nivea product so much? Suggest that the user uses the product and they actually enjoy using it. So you're assuming that this person enjoys using this product. Now, a better question might be, why do you use the Nivea product? Okay. Now, closed questions elicit yes or no answers. For example, if you ask, so you use the Nivea product each morning, what do you expect the participant to say? Or if you're the participant, okay? They'll sincerely respond with just a yes and not elaborate because of the question or how you asked the question. So a better question could be, can you tell me about how you use the Nivea product? This will give them more room to open up and tell you everything that you need to know. Now, the next thing we're going to be looking at, which is actually the last thing for today's class, is the interview script. Now, an interview script refers to a set of questions and answers, which is likely to be answered by the candidate or user. A list of questions, right? It is important to have a good interview script to help keep your interview on track and also to remember questions that you need to ask. Now, a good tip is to have an introduction and frame your questions around why and why to get your participants to tell a story. Now, I need you to know that I prefer the one-on-one interviews, right? Because a lot of people get to be very lazy. So they're like, okay, I'm just going to send out online surveys. I'm going to get responses from people. But the truth be told, when was the last time somebody sent you an online survey or questionnaire on WhatsApp and you actually went through it and put down your feedbacks? If I can even have answers in the chat box, when was the last time? Because I've seen a lot of that going around where somebody sends you a Google form. Like, okay, I'm conducting this survey. Please help me put your honest feedbacks. When was the last time that you actually went through it and you put down your honest feedbacks? You had the time and you typed out everything that you wanted a person to know. Nobody's saying anything because it's actually a lot, right? But for the interview, I get to see this person one-on-one. And another importance of one-on-one interviews, which is the qualitative research, is that I get to note the person's body language. I know how a particular thing. So let's assume that a product already exists, right? I'm trying to ask questions like, how did that make you feel? Of course, if I am angry, you're going to see it on my face, okay? The modulation of my voice, you're going to note my body language, okay? So that's the benefit of one-on-one interviews. I can also note down people's body languages because that exactly is going to help me when I'm doing my empathy mapping. We're going to talk about empathy mapping in the next class, where you're going to note down the way a participant felt, okay, and what a person thought and all of that. So that's the importance of one-on-one interviews. It helps you to note down people's body languages. Okay. So because I'm seeing a lot of comments in the section where people are saying it is not relevant and all of that, it is actually very important and it is inexpensive. What exactly do you need to do? All you have to do is just get a participant to sit. It could even be over a cup of coffee, right? And then because the goal is to make sure that the participant is as comfortable as possible to tell you everything. It could be your friend. It depends on the project idea that you're working on. Okay, and it will give room to get honest feedbacks. It's just like having two friends, chat about how a football session went. Okay, you know how two friends are just sitting and chatting about, oh, Arsenal, they did not do well at all. Chelsea failed at this game. You guys are just talking. It's the same way your participant is going to open up and tell you everything that you need to know about a product existing or non-existing. So if you ask me, I kind of prefer the qualitative method of research over the quantitative method of research. So yes, back to what I was talking about. For this class, actually, I have prepared an interview script to guide you. But of course, you need to craft an introduction for yourself because I mentioned that you need to have an introduction. An introduction could be, hi, my name is Favor Sunday. I want to conduct an interview for this, that. I am going to be recording, I am not going to be recording, blah, blah, blah. So that's an example of an introduction. Okay, so with that, an example of an interview script is, a pre-filled template that you can use to prepare for conducting interviews. In the script, you can list out key questions that you want to ask the participants and write a brief introduction to inform them about what they can expect. Okay, so these are things that you need to expect in this interview that I want to conduct. Now, the importance of interview scripts is it allows you to focus and ask the right questions. Because I don't know about you guys, if I do not write down stuff, I might actually forget. And then I go into the interview room and then I start asking questions that are out of course. I get carried away and start asking the wrong questions. But what interview script does is makes you stay in line. Okay. It makes you to ask the right question. It also saves time and it helps you to be more confident. That's about the interview scripts. Now I'm just going to stop sharing and reshare to show you the interview scripts templates that I prepared that you guys are going to make use of in the tasks that will be given at the end of this class. So let me just stop sharing and reshare. Can you see my screen? Please indicate. Okay, thank you very much. So yes, this is an example of an interview script. Now, when you get this link, because like I said, it's going to be part of your task. When you get this link, this is the instruction you're going to follow. Okay, the first thing you want to do is click on this file here. Click on file, then make a copy of the entire presentation. Okay, so you already have the instructions here on the front, the first slide. So the next thing is interview scripts by, this is where you're going to put your name. If your name is Okechukwu, you put your name here. Your name is Gladys, you put your name here. Your name is Famous, you put your name here. So this is the space for your name actually. And then now, this is the main part. If you can take your mind back to, where the lesson we just had, where I think one of the questions was, how do people currently perform financial online transactions? Do they? So you could actually add that here. Now, this is the first thing you want to do is have questions about the interview participants, because of course you need to find out more about the person you're doing the interview with. Okay, before you dive into whatever interview you want to do. So that's what you have here. The first question is questions about the interview participants. So in brackets, you've seen this, add questions about the participants here. We have provided one question for you, but bear in mind that you want to know as much as needed about your participants. So number one question we have, tell me about yourself. Remember, questions about the interview participants. Tell me about yourself. What do you do for a living? And all of that, because you're trying to get to know the participants more. Now, the next question here could be an example that I pointed out there, which was, how do people currently perform financial online transactions, right? That was the question. Now you're going to generate 5 questions that will help you answer that. Okay, generate 5 questions that will help you answer that. Remember that we had questions like, have you ever used a banking app? What mediums do you use? And questions like that. Okay, you fill them in here. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, question 5. So this is what an interview script looks like. And I'm going to share the link at the end of this class. So I'm just going to go back to what we had here. This way, I think. Okay. So here's an example. So after and please make sure to ask them questions that they are comfortable with. That's the whole essence of online one-on-one interviews. You can note when a question makes somebody uncomfortable, right? Okay. Especially if you're asking for I think I remember I know someone who actually did an interview for, he was trying to get, I think he was working on an application that helps people to, people that have a lot of weight to trim down. And then I think he asked the girl if she likes her body. Do you like your body currently? And the girl said she doesn't want to go on with the interview. Because of course, why would you ask her if she likes her body? Of course she likes her body, even if she's not going to admit it to you. Okay, so you need to make sure that you ask your participants questions that they are most comfortable with. So, like I said earlier, this could be examples, right? Just like we had questions about the participants, right? The next question could be questions about how people currently perform financial transactions online. Then these are the follow-up questions. Have you ever used a banking app? How frequently do you engage in financial transactions online, such as bill payments, fund transfers, or online shopping? Can you describe the types of financial transactions? All of these questions will help you to know how people currently perform financial transactions online. I hope we understand. So, yes, we have come to the end of today's class. Questions, please, before we call it a day. Questions in the comment section. You could also raise your hands if you have questions. Okay, I'm seeing one hand here. Success Friday, go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, good afternoon, Success.
Okay, so about the tax, I want to ask, are we going to use a banking app, or we can also use another app?
Oh, I'm going to actually give you a project to work on.
Okay.
Okay, just like we have the banking app, I'm going to give you something else, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Stanley Eze is asking, what name are we putting your username? Yes, preferably your Discord username would be fine. Okay. Any other question? Are we still submitting the second task we did? Yes, you are going to submit the second task we did. So we're just having a technical issue at the moment, which is going to be sorted out. That is the reason why you haven't gotten the submission links yet. So just hold on. And honestly, it's not only for your track. Every other track is affected. So are we using slide? You can see already that the interview script template is a slide. This is a slide on its own. So you're just going to follow through. So Famous is asking, oh, network kicked me out, so I did not hear what the task was about. Okay, so basically, I mentioned, I don't know where you got lost though. Well, the main query, if you have a question, you can use the chat box or you can raise your hand. Okay, so I don't know where you got lost, but I was pointing out that this is the interview script template that you're going to make use of, okay, for your task. You can see here, you can see the instruction here already. You have to make a copy, okay, and be sure to title whatever copy you made. Now, let me show you an example. Right, the first thing you want to do here is click on file, make a copy. Let me just show you an example. Now I'm going to select entire presentation. Now this is where I get to change the name. Okay, so I could have I could just put interview scripts, put a dash, and then write my name, Favor Sunday. So you can put your name here, and then I want make a copy. So let's wait a little bit for that to load. When I have made a copy of this, the first slide will no longer be necessary. Do you understand? So what you're going to do is delete the first slide. Now this is now going to be your first slide. Interview scripts by, you put your name here. Let me say we have who's here. Since I already have free, let me just add this. Precious Timothy, for instance. So this is what it's going to look like. And also be sure to give access. This is how you do that, because I noticed that a lot of people did not give you access to whatever submissions they made. So you go to the right side of your screen, just like you can see now, and click on the share button. So yes, you can see that this is restricted. Only people with access can open the link. So you're going to click on this drop down and select anyone with link. So that way, when you submit your link, we can actually have view access. Then you copy your link and you submit it. So this is where you get to do all of that. Now, I was saying for Hugh Famous who got lost, I was saying that the first thing you want to do is, generate questions to know more about your interview participants. Then I gave an example that the next thing could be, questions about how, looking at the case study we're talking about, the banking app, questions about how people currently perform online transactions, financial online transactions. So you could have questions like, are you currently using, an online platform for maybe bill payments, transfers in between accounts and all of that? Those are questions that could help you to know more about how people are currently, performing these online transactions. So that's basically what we're talking about. I think that's where you got lost on. So any other question, please, before we call it a day? Any other question? Any other question?
Someone in the chat, I think that's Ipam, is asking to explain more about body storming.
Okay. So I'm just going to go back to my slide. Right, so this is where we had that. So I was explaining that body storming actually deals with or has to do with role playing. And I gave an example of the pretend game. where you get to role play as somebody that you're not, especially at the moment. And I gave example of, growing up, how my baby sister used to role play as a teacher. Okay. So body storming, like I said, is where you try to, instead of trying to visualize because that's what most designers do. We try to imagine how a product is going to look like. But instead, we try to act it out as though the product is already existing. Okay. We tend to ask ourselves questions like, if I am the user, right? How would I feel if I actually have this? If I'm seeing this on a platform, how would that make me feel? And how much better can I actually out for users to understand? Okay. Like I said, it helps the design team, that's if you're working in a team or working on your own, to, you try to actualize whatever product or process that you're already working on as if it already exists. That's basically what body storming is. It's a technique that designers use, okay, because we're trying to, put ourselves in the shoes of the user and all of that to get more insights, and that way be able to solve the problem or provide solutions to the problem that we're trying to solve. I hope your question has been answered. Please, can the slides, it's asking, can the slides be pinned? Sure, we can work on that. So any other questions before we call it a day, please? Deme Equerry is asking, having on, okay, Mayo has answered that. Thank you very much. All right, so in the absence of no other questions, and for those of you that I have not done your second task, because I think I asked that yesterday and I got a lot of no, I have not. I want to ask, what is the challenge? Do you have any challenge at all? And I hope everybody has submitted the first task, because if I were you, I'd actually not advise that you keep, stockpiling your task. Make sure that you close them out one after the other. You finish the first one, move to the second one. If not, you're going to have a hard time when we start giving out promotional tasks. Okay, so if you have questions, you have any challenge, what you have to do is reach out on the Discord channel. Don't try to do everything on your own. I mean, we're all here to learn, right? So don't be ashamed to ask questions. And don't be ashamed or afraid to make mistakes too. That's how you learn. Okay, so I don't know if this question is directed to me from Olio. Is this the only thing you do? If not, how do you balance? Everybody can create a balance if you want to, because I actually have a lot of things I am doing at the moment, but you have to make time for what is important. Okay. I see a lot of people saying that they are working. I mean, a lot of people are working. I'm very sure that a lot of people on this platform, on this KodeCamp 3.0 cohorts, they are working. But you can actually, set some time out, set an alarm or something, create a timetable. That way you do not miss it. I had an interview today, and I had set an alarm 2 weeks ago. I actually forgot about the interview until I saw the alarm. I'm like, wow, okay, I need to prepare for this. So when you do that, set an alarm for class. You can even, set an alarm to remind you to do your task or something. I'm sure this could actually work for you. But at the end of the day, you have to find out what will actually work for you, because things work for different people. So for the interview task, are we going to use Google Slides? I already mentioned that the script is a Google slide on its own. I have already prepared a template. All you have to do is make a copy of it and do whatever you want to do. Duplicate it, make a copy. But for the introduction, you're going to see all of that. For the introduction, you're going to make use of a Google Doc. Okay. Thank you very much. Since we have no more questions, we're going to call it a day. Like I said, if you have questions, I'm going to keep saying this. Feel free to reach out on the Discord channel. We're all here to learn. Thank you very much. And keep practicing. Keep doing stuff and sharing them with us. Before I call it a day, Mayowa, do you have anything to say?
Okay, thank you very much, Favor. Hi guys, good afternoon once again. So concerning what you just shared about sharing your Figma designs and whatever it is that you're practicing on Figma, I'm going to create a thread on the Discord channel so that you guys can share whatever you're practicing on inside that thread. So you're not populating the main Discord chat with all of these things. It will just help to organize the whole Discord chat. And then one more thing is that when you are submitting your tax, be it Figma links or Google Slide link, whatever it is, not only should you give view access, also try and give comment access. When you give comment access, we can see your work and then we can also comment, because the essence of doing these assignments we're giving you is not just to do it and submit and pass and feel good. It's to actually know what we're teaching you and get better at it. And the way to get better is to get feedback. So in previous tasks that we gave, there are sometimes when we actually want to comment and say one or two things on the work that you did to help you improve and know what you did wrong or what you got right. So when you're sharing, especially links that are around Google Workspace, Google Doc, Google Slide, and all those kind of things, give comment access. So we are able to comment on your work and it would really, really help you. So that's it for me. Thank you very much, people.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you all for joining the class. See you next week. Have a nice day.